Well, now, my Heidi Mai, and welcome to this month's Tech Bites, which is a real milestone. It is episode number 50. And I did go on to Google Gemini and I asked it how many podcasts get to 50 episodes, and apparently it's 11%. So we're in the top 89 or whatever percentile. We started this right back at the beginning of our first lockdown back in 2020 for COVID. And guest number one was Jason Paris from 1NZ, and it's a real pleasure to have him back to recognise this milestone. So let's get into it. I know you're pretty well known around the place, Jason, but why don't you give us a bit of an introduction to yourself, your hometown, what it's like growing up, and then what you do now and where you're based.
Oh, kia ora, Craig. Thanks for having me back. Mustn't have gone too bad the first one if I've got to repeat, so appreciate that. I'm a proud Southlander. From Invercargill. My tahu is my iwi. I only found that out relatively recently, so kind of on my journey of Te Ao Māori. We've got kind of three children, 18-year-old, a 14-year-old, and 11-year-old, so two boys and a girl who's 11-year-old who's the boss of the house. The other two siblings are terrified of her. I married an Aucklander, Rachel, and so moved to Auckland because of her, and haven't been able to convince her of the benefits of the regional lifestyle of Invercargill yet. The family were very working class. So I come from freezing workers background, as a lot of people do down in Southland. It's either freezing works or TY. I really love my regional lifestyle down there, full of lots of sports, not too many academics. So it didn't really follow the natural path to maybe a role like this where you leave school, go to university. I just left school and started working straight away. Got employed by the bank manager of Trust Bank Southland, who was my manager for my Southland rugby team that I was playing for at the time. So all about relationships. And it was really when I was working in Tellers one day, and a guy came in from a radio station who was a sales and marketing manager, and he asked me to check his bank balance, and I saw that he got paid a lot more than I did, and asked him what he did. And that was, and then I got a job at his radio station, and that was my first step towards kind of sales and marketing. And then, just progressively as I moved north, got exposed to probably more technology-related roles, and have had the kind of a sales and marketing tech background ever since, both here and in Europe.
Geez, Trust Bank, that's a flash from the past.
It is near the Westpac now. So but it was a great foundation to work across a whole bunch of different areas in the business, and full of good people at the same time.
Yeah. All right. Let's get this out of the way early. Is this the Warriors year?
Craig, it's always the Warriors year. I'm pretty upset that we've lost two of our most important playmakers, and our captain and our half, Luke. But the kind of next person up mentality seems to be working for us, albeit we still continue to have more injuries than I would like, and we still continue to have those games like we did last weekend where we have a few missteps and we should win when we lose when we should win. The thing I like about this team though is its strong culture and the other teams' success rate. So New South Wales Cup, the Jersey Flag team, they're all performing really, really well. And so I think if it's not this year, it's definitely going to be in the next couple of years that we win that premiership for the first time. So can't wait, and still just as proud to have our logo on the front of their jersey.
Well, look, I want to make a call out right here and now to thank 1NZ, because they gifted 20 double passes to our rangatahi panel that we're doing our little mahi with at Pukekohe High at the weekend. And so we've got a little project going with Te Ara Hihiko. That's our mahi in the Māori Pacifica space. And 1NZ graciously hosted them at the Warriors game at the weekend. Unfortunately, couldn't put a win on, but hey, look, I hear they had an amazing time. So thank you, Jason.
No worries.
Yeah. Look, we're in the second quarter of our year, to answers year, since we run that way. Our theme is all about the responsible use of AI. And while we'll get to that, let's start with something a little bit mundane, shall we? Connectivity. So you run a company which has as its DNA, like us, the desire to get people connected. So tell us a bit about how you got into that industry and what it's done for you along the way.
Yeah, so as I said, I've came through the ranks from a sales and marketing background. Actually got a job when I first moved to Auckland, Extra, so doing some sales for Extra, and then when I was in Europe, I worked for Nokia, and so I had the kind of first taste of seeing what technology can do for people. I'm not a technologist, but I love what it does, the outcomes it drives. So I don't really care as much about 3G, 4G, 5G, HFC, ADSL, fiber, etc. What I do care about is the productivity gains, people being healthier, more entertained, more connected, learning faster. So when you have the privilege of working in this industry, seeing people get their first phone and the joy, or Spotify playing a song from 40 years ago that kind of provokes a memory, or an app that helps people find a fish, or FaceTime grandparents when they live in different parts of the world. That's the stuff that gets me really excited. And when we caught up, which was the pandemic, I think people were reminded, or it was kind of underlined, that we've become an essential service. You just can't live or operate without us. So pressure is a privilege, as we kind of say, and so that's a big part of why we continue to invest a huge amount in our infrastructure, because New Zealand is not a country with a huge amount of people in it, but we have got quality infrastructure here that maybe you wouldn't get normally with a country of the population that we've got, and I want to make sure that we keep it that way.
That's so true. Look, I've started talking about, and we talked about it at our summit in May, around getting 100% of our people connected, the 100% that need to be connected. And for the sake of a date, I've started using 2030 as a bit of a target. Now, there's all sorts of reasons for that aren't in your control. But do you think we could meet that goal as a nation?
I think the technology is going to be there now. Like, I know you're across our investment in SpaceX. I think that overlay of network coverage on top of our existing fiber 4G, 5G networks will mean that the accessibility of high quality connectivity will be there. So I think that's one point, and also it adds another level of resilience, that even if we continue to have these unfortunate natural disasters that impact power, it still means that we can get coverage from space, which I think is great. Then the other part of that is making it affordable for everyone to access it, both from a connection perspective, but also the devices that you use as well. So a big part of the other part of that we do is, one, we have as again we have a big investment in the Te Rauroa Foundation, which is focused on halving the number of disadvantaged whakatahi in Aotearoa, and that's through technology. And then the other part of the program that we're at One New Zealand is our wallet program, which is basically trying to make it as cheap as possible for you to access and upgrade the next generation of mobile connectivity. So to your point, I think, and those are just three things that we're doing. And I know, Chorus or Spark or 2 Degrees have also got their own programs that they're focusing on. So I do believe it's possible by 2030. And I like your time frame because it will create some urgency.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, let's turn to AI because, and we weren't talking about this 5 years ago, but, we are these days. Because I know at that 1NZ, and obviously we've had a couple of your key people, Bex Holdsworth and Summer Collins, speak at our events this year already, but I know that you at 1NZ have a pretty big focus on it. But I want to ask you, as the CEO, because you're as the leader, how did you get started in thinking about how to use these new tools that AI was enabling in your business?
Yeah, so I've been interested in this for quite some time now, and as you mentioned, Summer, she joined my executive team a couple of years ago now. Before everyone was talking about AI, so as chief data and AI officer. So, and we also before that sent her across to Oxford University to complete her basically masters in AI. So it has been on our radar for quite some time. What piqued my interest, I think, was not the kind of the stock standard robotic process automation, but really when large language models became more available to structure unstructured data. So when we looked at upgrading our own contact center technology, we went with a platform called AWS Connect. And one of the things I was most attracted to, and that was the ability for it to capture all of the conversations that our customers are having with us across all the channels, and then prioritize and tell us where the biggest friction points are within our organization, whether it's a product, a plan, a process. So I thought that was pretty incredible. And then make some recommendations on the actions that we should take. And then just 12 months ago, I went to the US with Summer, and it was on a tour about agentic AI. And seriously, this time last year, I genuinely said to Summer when we were just arriving, I said, "What the hell does agentic mean?" And she explained it in a really easy way for me, which is basically empowering the agents that are previously just making recommendations to us to actually take the action. And the technology had evolved so rapidly, and it surprised the entire technology industry how smart these robots and machines could be in taking action. And so you can now give the machine a persona, a data set, a set of parameters that it can act on behalf of you on. And I was going, this just doesn't feel real. And then increasingly over the last, between September and December last year, I realized that, and I saw firsthand that it wasn't kind of jazz hands, and 50% of it was real.
Yeah.
And we needed to be all in. So we flew our board across, our owners across, and I think it's the first technology I've come across which is going to fundamentally change everything in our business all at the same time. And that is exciting and terrifying for a CEO.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite clear that you guys are taking the lead in this space. I mean, if I look across the board, you are definitely one of the leaders in utilising this technology and being quite open about it as well, which is pretty important because we need that.
Yeah, well, it's scary. Like, change is scary in any form, but the pace of change with AI, it's surprising even the big tech companies, and we rolled out Copilot as a productivity tool just before Christmas, and then 4 weeks later, OpenAI releases the next version of ChatGPT, and that blows Copilot out of the water. Now we know that Microsoft is not going to let that happen, so we're waiting for the next version of Copilot. So, like, the innovation that's happening here is just absolutely extraordinary. And I use these tools every day in almost everything that I do, and it's making me way more productive.
Yeah.
The thing I think we need to watch out for, Craig, is that this technology is learning and evolving where I think it can probably do 30% of my role, not 100%, but that is rapidly increasing. And what happens when to a workforce when roles that are, relatively process driven today get replaced by machines? Like, what do we do? How do you manage and navigate through that as society? I think that's a fascinating topic to have a conversation about, and also I think a corporate has a responsibility to understand and make sure it's looking after its people along the way, which is why the only way to do that is to talk about AI with absolute transparency and honesty.
Well, let's just take that a little bit further. So, One NZ is a large New Zealand company. You are leaders. You're a well-known brand. I mean, what are your impressions about how the rest of us are going? How well prepared are we for the future?
Not very, I don't think. But I don't think that is surprising, because I said, like, 12 months ago, agentic was just starting to emerge, and it surprised everyone. So I think the lack of awareness doesn't have to be a disadvantage as long as you lean into it now. Most people don't think that they don't know that actually if they're using social media or maps or Spotify, they're using a form of AI already. They are sharing data. But the way that companies use that data needs to be anonymized, needs to be with permission, complete transparency. You should only hold the data for as long as you need to perform that transaction to help that customer, and then no longer. You have to have all the right guardrails to make sure that when you're testing stuff with these machines, that it's got human oversight. And the way that we're preparing our workforce is by training them. So we've got 3,000 people in our organisation. 1,200 of them have been through an AI school. 1,000 of them have got an AI credential now they can put on their LinkedIn profile that they didn't have 6 months ago. And we're also saying here is the product roadmap that our partners and AI partners are sharing with us, and how it would potentially impact your role. How do we make sure we're preparing you for that? And so we can redeploy you or move you into another part of the organisation that's going to be less impacted. But, even just last week around our exec table, 2 parents who've got kids at schools, different schools. One school has got a speech competition, and the school has said, hey, you should use ChatGPT to draft the first version of your speech. The other school is like, AI cannot be used in your speech. And I could debate that for an hour over who's right or wrong. All I do know is that the world is going to be more AI enabled, and if we're not leaning into it now, it'll happen to us versus us using it to its full potential.
Yeah, it's a great discussion to have, that one. Look, you talked about,
just to give you, sorry, Craig, give you an example, right? This, which is again a little bit terrifying, but you think about replacing someone and how long it takes to find them, recruit them, etc., train them up. It took us 12 hours to build our first agent. Like, that's just again exciting and terrifying all at the same time.
Just coming back to your comment you made earlier about you're learning that your whakapapa back to Ngāi Tahu.
Yeah.
We are a unique nation, and AI is one of those things that's coming in from outside, and we as an organisation are looking to that theme of encouraging the uptake, but also of it being responsible and inclusive. So as an individual, as a CEO of one, whatever perspective or lens you want to put on it, what do you think should be meant by that term, responsible and inclusive use?
Well, I think it's a multi-faceted question that requires multifaceted answers. So I'll give some quick themes. The first one is that one of the big benefits of being now more closely exposed to and learning about Ngāi Tahu is on my very first day when I joined the Ngāi Tahu Holdings board, they shared with me their 100-year strategy. And so it's a 100-year strategy broken down into 4 lots of 25, of which my tenure is 5 years. So that first lot of 25 broken into another lot of 5. And what it does is it shows how insignificant you are, but also the significance that you can make when you drop a pebble or a decision in that first 5 years, and how that ripple should positively or negatively impact in 100 years' time. So when you're thinking about AI, you need to think about it within that lens, how this technology is going to evolve over the next 100 years, 25 years, 5 years, and that is that's point one. Point two, if you're now looking at the now, the technology needs data to operate, and your data, my data, our data. And I don't say this too often because it freaks people out, but the reason we're at the epicenter of AI is because through our networks, we know who you are, where you live, where you work, where you shop, who you're with in real time. In real time. And that should mean that we can use that personal data with AI to make you massively more productive, to save you money, to save you time, to make you more connected. But at the same time, there are risks to that, for that data as well. And where is that data stored? How long is it stored for? How are you using it? So yeah, there's a lot of things for us to unpick over the next 100 years and over the next 100 days that we're kind of navigating through.
Just quickly on that, is there one thing was there anything that you think you're doing at one that others should look to learn from and implement?
Training. So we've got an AI school, and we're allowing people to A, learn the tools, and then B, experiment within, we call it the trust trail. It's basically a safe environment where we've bought the enterprise grade of these tools like, ChatGPT or Copilot, so people can put in our data and presentations and information into it and know that it's not being accessed by anyone else. So those are the two things I would say is, one, upskilling your people so they're prepared for it and familiar with the tools, and then two, allowing them to learn and experiment with it. Those would be the two gifts that I would say any organisation should be giving to its people right now.
Gifts, that's a great word. Look, you've worked with technology across various contexts. You talked about starting in radio. What's one surprising insight you've gained about the relationship between technology and its users you think would resonate with people?
I think, back to the fact that it's not the technology, it's the outcome that you're after. And so don't have to worry about all the technology specifics. Just focus on the outcomes, and that therefore anyone's a technologist if you just worry about that. It'll be point one. I think the thing that it's most interesting, that I'm probably digressing slightly, Craig, but I, as a technology guy, I get it, and because technology is changing the world so quickly, I get asked a lot about what skills should my child focus on at school or at university. And my answer is that it's less, don't worry about the technology or the skills. What increasingly differentiates people is great human values, being a good person. So it used to be that you learned a skill and its lifespan or value might be 10 years. Now with the pace of change of technology, it's probably more like 3 to 5. But what doesn't change is the value of being a great human being. Good manners, shaking hands, opening doors, giving up your seat, strong work ethic, being able to be a part of a team, caring about other people, and asking how they are, and genuinely caring about how they are. And it's sad in a way that increasingly I'm seeing that as a differentiator in the workforce. So when people are coming into One New Zealand and interviewing, we know we can teach them the technology skills. What's harder to teach is being a good human being. And that's what I suggest to parents, and I reflect on myself as the most important thing that they can encourage their children to do and be.
Thanks, Jason. That's amazing. Look, as we start to wind up, we've got a couple of last questions. Just considering your experience, what do you see what role do you see organisations like us at 2Ns playing in shaping the future of technology adoption and policy in Aotearoa?
Well, I think your mission is fantastic, right? Because you want to get accessibility. I love the goal of 2030. And I know that it's a multifaceted approach too, Craig, where it's, it's access to the network, but then also access to the devices that connect to the network, and then also being comfortable in using that technology. So I think the mission is exactly what Aotearoa and the world needs. I also like the fact that you're trying to make technology less scary by focusing on accessibility, less intimidating by focus on technology. And so I think the other thing that you're doing is hopefully having conversations like this, or encouraging people to not be so tentative about downloading ChatGPT and having a play with it, but then also understanding through that what the dangers of it could be, and making sure that we navigate through them, really positively.
Well, Jason, as usual, it's been a real pleasure to have you on. I've got one last question, which I've started asking, which is a final question of what 2 books that you're reading or you read that you'd recommend to our listeners.
So I knew you were going to ask me this question, Craig, and so I've got 2 books. One is the book I've read probably 10 times now, which is American Icon, The Turnaround of Ford Motor Company by Alan Mulally, who used to be the CEO of Boeing before that. I think it's a masterclass in culture, customers, commercials, regulation, everything. So I would recommend that. And then the other one I have to recommend is my wife's book, See How They Fall.
Right.
She's a first-time author. It's a psychological thriller. It's been #1 in the country for quite some time. I think it's still #2. So really, really proud of her. And, I've seen how much work has gone into writing 80,000 words, and then how terrifying it is to put it out there in the ecosystem for everyone to judge. And it's I read a lot of psychological thrillers, and it's right up there. So I love it. So yeah, plug for Rach, my wife.
Excellent, because we'll be plugging it on our social media next week then, given you've put it up there. So
good man. I'll have to get you a copy too, Craig.
Yeah, I read psychological thrillers as well.
Oh, good. So I'll get you a copy. I'll get one sent across to you.
Thanks very much. Well, again, thanks, Jason. Really great to talk to you. 50th episode. Hopefully we can do a few more. I mean, I've done 10 and a bit years here now, so it might have to take a little bit longer. But apart from that, thanks so much for your time, and ka kite.
Congratulations, Craig. Thanks for having me on.